So the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-14 in the AFC wildcard round, led by Lamar Jackson's 256 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 186 rushing yards and 2 scores. The Baltimore offense dominated with 464 total yards, while Pittsburgh managed a measly 29 rushing yards. The Ravens now head over to Buffalo for a nice rematch of this regular season, this time with the stakes even higher in the divisional round, with the Steelers dropping out of the playoffs in the wildcard round once again. I picked the Steelers, you picked the Ravens. Did this game have to say more about the Pittsburgh Steelers or about the Baltimore Ravens?
Oh, I would say it says more about the Ravens, and my takeaway is that Jackson and Henry had the Steelers chasing shadows all night. And the Baltimore outrushed the Steelers 299 to 29 yards. Jackson hands off to Henry, then slides out to the left as if he still has the ball. Linebackers shift to Jackson's path, leaving the middle open for Henry to run through for a 44-yard TD. That's all night long they were doing this. You could see Jackson would hold the ball, and he and Henry were right beside each other. Then he'd move to the left. The linebackers would go tackle Jackson or head for him, and Henry run around the right side for a big gain. So that's the best example of what I just said, of the quandary Jackson and Henry create for defensive players. If the defense has to figure out who has the ball first, and if enough are out of position, either Raven Star can burn you. And I think that was this game. So I says more about the Ravens, who played their game. They had the formula that we've been saying wins for them every time. Jackson passing for under 30 times, Henry running for more than 20 times. It works every time. They win every time. On the other hand, the Steelers, they ditched their game plan. They brought in Arthur Smith to have a running game, right? They rushed the ball for they were under 50 yards. They had
under 30 yards.
29 yards they had in total in rushing. That ain't going to win any game. I'm sorry, playoff or otherwise. Russell Wilson, 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 DDs. He had nothing in the first half. They were behind 21-0 at the end of the first half. He got them going a little bit. They scored 14 points in the third quarters, but the Ravens came right back with that 44-yard TD run by Henry to get up to 28 and 14, and that was the end of the game.
I will give a lot of credit to the Baltimore Ravens because that was well-deserved. But for me, this said a lot more about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we need to have difficult conversations, and maybe the conversations that no one wants to have, because normally when we have these types of conversations, it seems degrading of an all-time great. But it doesn't have to be. I think Mike Tomlin should be done. Now, the reports are he'll come back in 2025 because he did sign a 3-year extension in the 2024 offseason. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere, just like it hasn't gone anywhere for several years. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So unless you want to keep doing this simple dance back and forth of, well, what do we have left? What is Mike Tomlin really known for? Not ever having a losing season. Well, no, that is a phenomenal feat to have. But what makes him great? Is it sick playoff wins? Is it dominating performances where you crush, these all-time greats in the playoffs? Is it you make Super Bowls and you come oh so close, but you sometimes get it, you sometimes don't? Or is it that you actually put your team in harm's way because you're good enough to not have a losing record, but you're nowhere good enough to actually win a playoff game? So you're around the 16 to 19 draft spot. So you're out of contention for a legitimate QB prospect. So you're kind of doing this rinse and repeat slow dance with guys who are middling prospects. And while all the top-tier quarterbacks where you desperately need one, because you've had Kenny Pickett, you've had Mitch Trubisky, you've Kyle Allen, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, an aging Big Ben Roethlisberger, Mason Rudolph. You have all these quarterbacks, but they're not great quarterbacks. So keep doing this dance. Why not? Because it's great to sound like, oh, I've never had a losing season. That's great. But when it matters the most, this is a Hall of Fame coach in the NFL. But his system of, I don't care what the offense looks like because my defense will step up. That's great for maybe a half to 2/3 of the season. But what we saw in the last few games is they fall apart. Absolutely fall apart. TJ Watt, who is still a tremendous player in the NFL, obviously, has done nothing since week 16. He's had a few QB hurries here. He's had, I think, 15 total pressures, but he hasn't had a sack. He missed a bunch of tackles in this game. He couldn't tackle anybody. He kept biting on the read options, which is what you're talking about here. How many missed tackles did he have? He had 2, which led the team in missed tackles. Every single tackle attempt was a missed tackle. 100% missed tackle percentage. He did nothing in this game. He was on the side of the Ravens offensive line. That is the issue. He had a rookie right tackle dominate him in this game, when the right side of the offensive line was the bad side of the Ravens offensive line. So for me, this says way more about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because you screwed up the quarterback competition. Justin Fields in his only 6 games that he started, and Russell Wilson's last 6 games of the regular season, I have the numbers here. Justin Fields, you could argue, is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. But he got no playing time. And even if he went out there, he'd be throwing the football or doing a one simple QB sneak here and there. He had 2 total snaps in this game when everybody was hinting at, well, could we see more Justin Fields in this game? Should we see more Justin Fields? He came in on 1 throw, which he got instantly pressured in, and another one where I believe he handed the ball off. That's a guy who was in a quarterback competition up until week 1 of the regular season, and he barely plays anything. And
he played well when he had his chance.
Correct.
Right? First 6 games of the year. First 6 games of the year. And he played 6 games. Russell Wilson, and he was 4-2.
Russell Wilson played 11. These are just the last 6 games of the regular season.
Last 6 games of the regular season. Okay, 2-4. Yeah. So, Pittsburgh season ends with 5 straight losses, 2 to the Ravens. Steelers have lost 6 consecutive playoff games. The Ravens had 10 TD drives of more than 90 yards this season, and they had 3 TD drives in the first half of the game against the Steelers: 95, 85, and 90. And you picked the Steelers, and I, there's pretty good reason to think that the Steelers could have beat them, because they've beaten them pretty consistently in the past couple of years, and they generally beat them because they capitalize on the Ravens' mistakes to beat them. But the Ravens avoided that problem. They didn't take many risks. They had those very long drives, and they ran the ball. And one drive there, I think the longest one, they didn't pass the ball once. And Jackson says, I can just hand the ball off to Henry. He gets 10, 20, maybe 30 yards, and I'm just chilling. When they attack him, and I'm fresh, just making my job a lot easier. We just piggyback off each other, and we'll see what happens when they go to the Bills.
Well, I do want to say, because people might be looking at, Chuck Noll only made the playoffs 4 times in his final 12 seasons, and Bill Cowher was allowed to continue on through, poor seasons and whatnot. There's a slight difference there. Chuck Noll never had more than 3 seasons without a playoff win. Bill Cowher never went more than 2 seasons without a playoff win. And thanks, I credit NFL Network for this one. Mike Tomlin is the first Super Bowl winning coach to have a 6-game losing streak in the playoffs. Here's my question to you. Why does he get a pass now? Why would he get a pass now? Because what has he done in recent history? Take the over 500 record out of it, because that clearly doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. What has Mike Tomlin done for his team and for his organization to warrant him staying for 2 more years after this?
I guess it's the winning record in the regular season.
If that's it, then I'm sorry. You got to cut bait. You got to cut
I don't know
loose.
what else it would be. I mean, he's had tough luck with quarterbacks, right?
And that
that
500 record goes against that, though.
Because last year in the playoffs, he was with Mason Rudolph was his quarterback, right? He had Kenny Pickett. I mean, he's had some pretty pedestrian quarterbacks recently. And
that's
Russell
his own
Wilson,
fault, though.
Russell Wilson is, I think, when they sat Justin Fields down, I was very angry about that. We documented that in the show, that there was no reason to sit Justin Fields down. He was playing well.
He was also coming off a huge victory, that prior week.
And they sat him down.
He had over 300 passing yards in that game.
Russell Wilson, they figured they thought was a better passer. And, he passed well in this game, but they had no running game. With Justin Fields out there, you have another threat, a guy who can run the ball. It's more like a Lamar Jackson offense. So I think they made a mistake there. It was a tactical mistake, strategic blunder. And I don't know. We'll see what they do in the offseason. They should hang on to Justin Fields, I think.
Well, I just want to pile on to this. So since Mike Tomlin's last playoff win, Dan Quinn took the Falcons to the Super Bowl, got fired by the Falcons, spent 3 years as the Cowboys DC, got hired by the Commanders, and won a playoff game with the Commanders. And that's with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, that winning record, if you say that's his only thing, here's my problem with that, and I mentioned it earlier. Because he refuses to have a losing
another reason. That's the only reason I can think of.
I completely agree with you. But because he keeps not having a losing season, he is never in a position to draft a top-tier quarterback. Unless we have a repeat and even add a few, because this ended at the 12th overall pick, where you have 6 or 7 quarterbacks that are all first-round talents and all could be great. When is that going to happen again? But no, the Steelers could remain at the 17th, 18th, 19th draft pick, and everyone's like, hey, above 500 record, that's great, 500 above. But it's just going to be this nice dance of, okay, well, the offense, it'll be neglected. We don't have a, by the way, Najee Harris is gone. George Pickens, by the way, he said that he saw some things change, but doesn't make him optimistic. He said, nah. You've had these wide receivers with great egos. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. You let Deontay Johnson go. George Pickens hasn't been happy all year. He hasn't been happy the past 2 seasons. So if you want to keep that sort of culture in your building, by all means do it. But to have it benefit, and I agree with you, Arthur Smith was there for a mobile quarterback system, was there for a running system.
He was there for a running system.
And Justin Fields.
And it was working. It was working the first 6 games of the season.
It wasn't bad.
4-2.
Right. It wasn't bad at all. Yeah, you had one loss, by the way. If we want to bring up the Indianapolis Colts loss, Joe Flacco had an insane game, which up until that point, besides the following week with the Dallas Cowboys, and here's what's crazy. We take out yesterday's game. That Dallas Cowboys loss, the 20-17 loss, was the most yards that they gave up that season during the regular season. If we take out the wild card game in the regular season, that Cowboys loss, the 20-17 loss, was the most amount of yards that they allowed. And also, if we go back to the Colts game, Joe Flacco had a tremendous game. So it's not that Justin Fields necessarily played poorly. It's that, at least in the in the Cowboys game, the defense didn't show up, and then Joe Flacco just dominated in that game.
Yeah,
and you fault Justin Fields, and even when and Russell Wilson did have a tremendous start against the New York Jets, and then followed it up with the New York Giants. Yeah, that'll make a lot of that'll make a lot of mid quarterbacks really great. And I said this 2 years ago, last year, about Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame resume. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on it. Because I think that every single year that we see middling play, it really shows the difference between the Legion of Boom Russell Wilson that went along for the ride in large parts of it, where it came to having Marshawn Lynch and the best defense arguably or near it in NFL history, and then the Russell Wilson now, where the let Russ cook means he's burning food in the kitchen. Because we saw it at the end of the Seahawks tenure, we saw it throughout the tenure with the Denver Broncos, and we saw it, crumbling into a fiery blaze of hell with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Who threw the interception to Malcolm Butler that we have right up here on the on our wall here?
See it? Yeah, we can see it in the corner right there.
There it is.
Yeah,
Who threw it? Russell Wilson.
So I don't know where Russ signs next year, because reportedly the Pittsburgh Steelers are very frustrated with Russ, and they're looking to sign Justin Fields before they sign Russ. Does he get picked up as the starter? Because he had a big ego this past offseason, where he said the Giants, by the way, the Giants said that it was going to be Daniel Jones' team. Russ backed out of any sort of deal with the Giants after he was told that. Does he get humbled, Mr. Unlimited, to go on a team to be the backup or to at least fight for the number one job instead of being just given the number one job? To not have the pole position for the starting quarterback job.
You don't think he'll be with the Steelers?
Why would the Steelers bring him back unless you want to do the same damn dance you just did, except this time you'll be coming off of a 6-game is it 5-game losing streak?
5 games. 5-game
losing
4 in the
streak.
Regular season and the playoff game.
So if you want to bring back Russ, I'm not going to necessarily say that, I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm just going to say just watch.
I mean,
the performance will speak for it itself.
When they started on the slide, why didn't they go back to Justin Fields? Particularly the last game of the season, they knew they were going to make the playoffs. It was just a seeding issue. Why not let Justin Fields play that game? I don't know why not.
That last game of the regular season, by the way, was the only game this year where they allowed less than 20 points and lost. The only game. Undefeated when they allowed less than 20 points. But the Bengals game, which, by the way, I don't know if we remember that game. There was a special teams controversy in that game. Remember the blocked punt? Where it was a live ball and then nobody knew and then they muffed it and the Bengals recovered it late in that game. That was that game.
Yeah.
So I think the Steelers are in for a rude awakening because if they're going to hold on to Mike Tomlin and continually hold on to Mike Tomlin, then this is going to be the same dance. So they'll look perfectly fine through the first half of the year. And then once the defense starts to have human emotions and reactions to being, the key piece of this team and they get tired, well, then we know what the product looks like. You'll start to fall off, and then when it comes to playoff time, you'll most likely lose to whatever team you face. It's a rinse and repeat process.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how they break out
Rudy's
of it.
got to say,
I think
not
they
anymore.
should. Arthur Smith is going to stay with them, right? He doesn't. He's
who knows?
People are looking for him maybe to go back to being a head coach. I think they really doubled down on that. What they originally said they were going to do. They were going to go with the running. Really go with the run. Try to get Najee Harris back. Re-sign Justin Fields. Draft to support the offensive line and see if you can do it that way. Because the defense tends to play better, I think, of the Steelers when they know probably aren't going to score that many points. You know? They showed it. They had the winning formula. They blew it when they put Russell Wilson in there.
And the fact that there was, is Justin Fields going to play more? Are they going to use Justin Fields as a utility piece? And he handed the ball off, and it wasn't even a throw because he got pressured instantly. But the fact that Justin Fields, at least going into this year, was going to be like, okay, they're going to do a nice utility piece. Justin Fields going to be out there. Even Madden in their trailer had Justin Fields returning kickoffs. He got utilized basically 0% of the time after he got benched for Russ. And this was supposed to be your subtle X factor for your team in key situations. You're going to bring him in when you need a nice little spark. Well, you could have used a spark 6 weeks ago, and it never came.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing. I give my props to Baltimore though. But the reason why I say it's more on Pittsburgh, or this says more about Pittsburgh, is because the Ravens, the past few weeks, you brought up Week 11, their defense has been top tier in the league. Their offense has remained consistent throughout the entire season.
Yeah. The defense has played a lot better.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if this is the Ravens team to beat the Chiefs. Because they were always a top tier running team. But they have a piece where, and now, because week 1, we got to remember, they did not get the amount of snaps and the utility of when to use Derrick Henry correct in week 1. Because you just got him.
Figured it out.
You just got him. And then instantly, once you started to use him after week 2, then you're like, okay, yeah, we're going to give the ball to a guy who keeps scoring touchdowns and who's got 1,900 yards. So, and especially with the way the Chiefs have been playing as of late, maybe you have an opportunity to finally break that armor and make your first Super Bowl in
299 yards rushing in that game against Pittsburgh's defense, which is supposed to be pretty good.
It was sixth against the run in the regular season.
Well,
Najee Harris is going to be gone after this year. The writing was on the wall. He didn't, get his 5th-year option. Even though he had 1,000 yards.
He didn't have that greatest season, and we got 1,000 yards, but his rushing average per carry was under 4 yards.
It was 4.0, but still, the running attack, it was nothing deadly, strictly using the running backs. With Justin Fields, you had an opportunity to do the RPO or do the read option, stuff like that. But Russell Wilson doesn't move well, doesn't throw a great ball anymore. He had a couple of good throws on okay, decent coverage late in the game when the game was completely out of reach. And then late in the game, what happened? Really nothing. Turnover on downs, punt. Nothing really good. So if I'm the Steelers, I'd be fed up with Russ too. It was a low risk, high reward type of a situation because the Denver Broncos paid him exorbitant amounts of money. But when it comes down to actually now paying him, I don't know who's going to be giving him that deal. And he was hoping for the Baker Mayfield deal. Okay. Sure.
I don't think so.
Baker Mayfield's putting up 4,100-yard seasons and being tied for second in passing touchdowns. Russ is doing what?
Not
being
much.
okay and letting the defense dictate how the game turns out? I'm just going to throw it out there. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.